Hey, good afternoon. It's Wednesday, November the 9th, 2022. This is Mary Lou Foster, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Sulphur Springs, Texas. And I welcome you to my Facebook Live. Today is my first free online card class. And you're like, what's that? Well, we'll talk about it as we go. It's a chance, let me see if I'm live yet. Get my iPad going and my laptop. Need to see if I am live on the devices. I'm live on my phone. Yeah, I'm live here on my computer. So if you're joining me, if you don't mind mentioning that you're watching, that helps me be able to see. Oh, sorry, I stuck my arm right in front of you. Comments. Hi, Margene. I knew someone was on. Looks like there might be 3 on. So like I said, this is my first online card class. And you're like, what is that? Well, it's a little different twist on what I've been doing. I'm going to be able to offer you card kits for these cards. You'll get 4 card kits, 2 of each of the ones I'm going to make today, for your online order of $25 or more. I have a host code. You have to order with that host code, and that's how I know that you want the card kits. So I'll put all that information in the description when I'm finished today. It doesn't make sense to do it before I do the class, because then you're like, what is all this about? And I will send you the card kits. Now, none of it will be stamped. You'll get the supplies to make the cards. So, excuse me. Hi, Barbara. Nice to have you join me. So today I'm going to show you 2 Christmas cards. This one is using the new fitting florets. Well, what did I do with the I'm going to use the framed and festive. This one is available until December the 31st. I will also provide you a list of the supplies that I have used to make these cards. You'll see the background has fa la 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 stamped over and over. It's in this stamp set, framed and festive, part of the fitting florets, framed florets. It kind of has different names. And then 'Tis the Season is in this stamp set. I accidentally ordered an extra one, so gonna have to figure out. I may have to do a drawing for that. My host code, I've printed it out great old big, and I hate for it to be up in your face, but this is the host code that you'll need to use to place that order if you want these card kits. My online store is maryloufoster.stampingup.net, and that I'll put all of that in the description. So I think I'll go ahead and get started. The embellishments on this card are also only available till December 31st. They're called the Gold Adhesive-backed swirls. And I don't know if you can see, if I can get it, where you can see the little swirly design as it catches the light. You kind of can. You have to see these things in person sometimes for them to really shine. So your card kit will include a soft succulent card base. It'll already be cut at 8.5 by 5.5, and I have it scored at 4 1/4. This is what I call a traditional portrait fold card, so a side fold. Fold that. I'm going to set this in front of me so I can kind of see. You'll have a liner piece, 4 by 5 1/4, that will go on the inside. You'll have a piece of either distressed gold or there's another gold that I had to substitute, and then you'll have a piece that will become the tag. Some of you have seen this card before, because when I did the senior citizen class this week, this was one of the cards, and I had made a lot of extras. So I have a lot of extras. So let me show you. Sometimes you don't need designer series paper to make pretty cards, and this is an example of that, where you can use either flowers in a set. These are just the words, fa la la, and you're just going to stamp it over and over, and it's soft succulent ink, and I don't want it on the back, so I'm going to go back to my fold, and you just stamp it around. I'm not going to stamp it upside down. I will stop short of doing that. And I can stamp all the way on, all the way off. It won't really matter in the middle because it's going to be covered with our little banner thing. But just visually while I'm working on it, I am going to go ahead and stamp it in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and clean my stamp, so I don't accidentally get ink where I don't want it. And I'll close my ink pad. So that's just, I mean, all by itself, that looks pretty awesome. That part is done first. Then we can work on our tag. Let's see if I can lay this where you can kind of see it. So I have my stamps laying out. I would recommend cutting this banner, this notch, before you stamp your flowers. And this is cut at 2 5/8. So half of 2 is an inch, half of 5/8. Let's go about 3/8. Or just kind of eye it up. I go in the middle and I cut up. And then I go to a corner and I cut to the top of that little cut I just made. And then I go to the other corner. I tried to use my punch because I have the banner punch, but this tag was too wide. And I'm like, oh, I'll just show them how to make a notch. So I'm using the flower out of, what I did with that stamp set. It's in a different box. It's in this box. It's framed florets, and they're so pretty. This bundle will be in the new mini catalog that's coming out the 1st of January. On January 3rd, I think, is the official launch date. You can order it right now. That and the paper and this other stamp set, the framed and festive, and the embellishments. Now the paper and the embellishments are only available until December 31st. So if you like them, I would recommend going right ahead and getting some. And they're in good supply right now, because you know sometimes these things are while supply lasts. Those are photopolymer stamps, so there are clear stamps. Just let that kind of sit. I don't know if those are roses. Doesn't really matter what kind of flower they are, but they are so pretty. And then the verse, "'Tis the season to be jolly." I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. And that one is in the framed and festive. And I'm going to use the rest of these on some cards that I'll probably show maybe next week. I have convention. They don't call it convention. It's called On Stage now. I'm going to Arlington with my upline and a couple of other demonstrators. We leave tomorrow, and we don't get back till Saturday evening late. I don't know, after 8 o'clock. Oh, I didn't ink it really, really well, but I am not going to try to restamp it. So I don't want to mess it up. So I don't know if I'm going to have time to make cards. I have grand plans, and then sometimes I don't have enough time. So I am coloring it very simple. I use the light Sweet Sorbet stamping blend. I just had some lunch, and I guess lunch I must have swallowed too much air, kind of like a baby. You know how you have to burp them after they have a bottle? So I didn't try to do the shading, but I did choose colors that look like Christmas. That soft succulent is a nice color of green. It's not like the dark, rich green, but with this Sweet Sorbet, I thought this looked like Christmas colors. And the nice thing about these blends, you don't have to get right to the edge of the stamp. They tend to kind of spread out as they're on the paper. So if you get up close to that stamped edge, sometimes it bleeds right over. You can always go back and kind of touch it up. I'm using the brush end right now because these are larger areas to color. Go back with the nib end. I never could decide if that was a leaf or a petal, but I think it's a petal because I think it would look funny to put green right there. That just is so much fun to color with those. If you don't have these stamping blends, or if you've never used alcohol-based markers before, they are so nice to work with. And then, oh, that was Daffodil Delight, and it was the light one. And I'm going to use light soft succulent, and I am going to use the little nib end of this because these leaves are pretty small, and that brush would just get too much ink. I like to color inside the lines. I'm sorry, I don't do well with abstract art. I see people who make some pretty creative things, and I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing. So I stamped this flower design kind of towards the bottom. No particular reason. There are no ribbons on this one. But I just thought that it looked like Christmas. And then there are berries. So I'm going to use the little nib end just to put a little bit of color on those. So that was all that needed to be done to get those flowers colored. And then I'm going to mount that. I'm going to put my adhesive on the back of my banner instead of on the gold. This is that distressed gold, and they've had trouble keeping it in stock. I believe it's in a low quantity right now. So if you hopped on like pretty quick, you could probably get that. Now you have a choice. You can mount this directly to the card front, or you can use dimensionals. I use dimensionals under mine, which in person, you know, that gives it, pops it up off the card base. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, you won't have all of this in your card kit. You'll just have the cardstock, the envelope, the paper. I will put 2 of the embellishments, but I highly encourage you to get some while you can. There's nothing more disappointing than waiting. You'll only have a week to place your order, your over $25 order before shipping and tax, using the host code that I will put in the comments to get these card kits. It can't drag on forever. So I'll be sure and include the name of the stamp set that I used. So if you want to use the exact same stamp set. Okay, there's a piece that someone's embellishment still had the sticky inside that envelope. Use the U-Picket tool. I've packed a lot of my stuff to take to on stage because we're supposed to bring our basic crafting supplies. Do that way. And I think on this card, I'm going to go ahead and do the third one. So which do you like better? It doesn't really matter, 2 or 3. I know I always talk about putting embellishments on in odd numbers. I forget whose card this was that I copied, and they only had 2. And I'm like, don't they know that rule? Let's go ahead and do the inside. Here's what I want to do. On the inside of this one, I stamped those flowers. So I'm going to do that before I put it in. So I laid the stamp right here. Let me open that so you can see. I just love it. Look, there, I stamped them off the corners, off the edges. It's such a cool look. Make sure I get enough ink on it this time. And I think I'm going to do it up this way. And re-ink it. And I picked a different spot then. Don't want to end up off camera. No, don't go to sleep. My laptop over here was threatening to go to sleep. There, I'll use that one. Cute. And I'm going to color it before I put it down. What we've learned about the stamping blends, sometimes they bleed through. So you have to be careful and think about your layers. Like if this were just the inside of a white card and you stamped and then colored, for sure it would bleed through to the back of the card, which to me doesn't look very pretty. So I like to use the stamping blends on a card with a liner. That's just a pro tip there. Things that you learn as you do this. This Sweet Sorbet is such a nice red. You would think it would be pinker, but when you use it, it really looks red. And of course, this is the light. I could use the dark and kind of give it some depth, but like I said, sometimes simple is better. You're not stressing yourself out. There are some people that are very creative with using those. And it can take a lot of time. And when I'm doing a live like this, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I want to get the card done so you can see it. And when you make your own, you are free to do whatever you would like to do, however you want to do it. Let's see, I think that's the leaf right there. This way, then, when they open it up, they'll have the same flower. I missed coloring that flower. They're going to have the same flower on the inside that was on the outside. I don't think I decorated the envelope for this one, though. For that reason, because the soft blends, they will bleed right through both layers of an envelope. I think I said that you will get the envelope in your card kit so that it is, once you're finished, you have a product that is ready to use. People will be very impressed. I do have a inside first to put, but I'm going to go ahead and mount this in here. This looks like a card you would get at Hallmark, doesn't it? With the pretty. So we're going to say, that's not the one. Okay, here it is. May this be a Christmas to remember. And I'm going to do it in black, Memento Black, because I want them to be able to read it. They could probably read Soft Succulent. And another tip, when you're inking your stamps, don't squish them real hard down. Just tap, 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 and see how I'm moving that around, because I think there's a little bit dry spot on that ink pad. And by moving it around, I'll get lucky and I hit the wetter spots. And I'm not getting ink all over everything. When you tap, tap, tap lightly, it inks the letters, because, you know, they stand up off of this red rubber They do off the photopolymer too. But you're not getting ink all over everything. These ink pads, for sure you want to tap, 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 because they're the foam pad, and if you're squishing your stamp down into it, you're getting ink everywhere. And then you end up with halos around your stamped image. And you're disappointed with how it comes out. So I recommend practicing. That's why I like to use grid paper or scratch paper. So that's the first card. I'm going to do 2 today. And in your card kit, you'll get 2 of each card. So you'll have 4 cards. And that's with your minimum of $25 online order. Using the host code. If you place a $50 order, I will include a packet of the Gold Adhesive-backed swirls. They're available. Yeah, there's a glue dot that came off. So it makes it hard to put this back in. I like to keep mine in their package if I can. Okay, so there's your envelope. If you wanted to stamp the flower on it, you could, but I would probably stop short of coloring it. Our second card, we also made at the Senior Center. And it uses Garden Green, Real Red. Here's my card kit. I'm going to make a variation of this card for today. I have dies. I'm using the seasonal label dies today to cut out the holly leaves. Ribbons, I've got a couple to choose from. The Christmas season stamp set. This is actually one that came back from last year. So every now and then they'll do that. And this Merry Christmas is just gorgeous. I got to figure out which stamp set it came out of so I can tell you. Did I? On the inside of my card, sometimes I'll put a sticky note. I moved it. Get that out of the way. I'm going to have to figure out which stamp set I used. I gave myself a sticky note that it was Garden Green and Real Red. Those are my inks. And so the paper is also paper from last year. And it is called, let me pull it. Of course, when you want it, you can't find it. Painted Christmas. This was all like a suite of products last year. The Christmas season, the painted. And since it came back, I was able to pull what I had kept out. And today's the variation. I'm going to use the Garden Green and a different piece of the paper. I think those are the same. So this card is a landscape card. It opens, instead of opening this way, it opens this way. Same size, 8.5 by 5.5, but you orient the fold at the top instead of the left side. That's kind of the cool. You get a totally different look when you do that. And this card is very easy. I rate it up there as a very easy. So your strip goes all the way across, so it's 5.5, and the green piece is 2.5 inches wide, and the designer series paper is 2 1/4, so you have that nice little matte edge. I'm going to go ahead and adhere my designer series paper to my cardstock. And then I'll show you the trick about the ribbon. So I like to line it up on one edge, and then that way I can see how much is at the top and the bottom for my little mat. Now, before you stick this down, you want to tie your ribbon around that, what ends up being kind of a label or a center panel. And on this one, I used the pretty gold, but I think on this one, I'm going to use the silver edged, metallic edge they call it. Oh, because we're out, that's why. This was satin edged, but it was gold. And this is silver metallic edged, because I thought it would look just as pretty. It adds just that little bit of sparkle. And 12 to 14 inches is usually a nice length. We're going to tie it around this part. So I always kind of line up my ends. And I turned it sideways, but it doesn't matter if how your bow ends up oriented. If you want it to go side to side or up and down. Mine kind of ends up angled on my example card. It ended up going up and down. I know there's a trick to it, and every now and then I get it right. That's real helpful, isn't it? Alright, give that a little trim. And it looks like that top loop is a little bigger. Pull it in some, tighten it. And I did not mount this on dimensionals. I did it flat. But what I'm going to do before I adhere that is I'm going to stamp the Merry Christmas. And I'm going to have to, after I get off this and I put where the names of the stamp sets, I did not make a sticky note. And I do not remember the name of that stamp set. But I loved that font. And I'm going to stamp it in real red. So you know you have to be careful with these reds and greens, because they get on you and they like to stay. So I'm tapping it. And you can sometimes look and tell if you have it well inked. I'm just going to trust that it is. I'm going to put it in this lower right corner. And to get it straight, I lined up the edge of my stamp with the edge of my cardstock. And it's straight. How about that? Close up the red. And I'm going to go ahead then. This is mounted kind of high. I'm going to wait to do that until I stamp my holly leaves. The cool thing about these holly leaves, there are 2 of them on the stamp and they're connected. And I did not cut mine apart. I have stamping friends who did, but I just don't like messing up my stamps. So these are stamps that aren't necessarily solid. I don't know what in the world all that is, but it's going to be okay because I'm going to use the dies to cut it out. So it's meant to be distressed looking. They're not meant to be perfectly solid. So the dies, there are tons of these dies. You can tell the one we're going to use because there are tons of stamps, and the labels in these dies are the best. I forget I have them, but I used them a lot last year. Unfortunately, I have forgotten to use them very much this year. So I have my little mini machine here beside me. And this one does, okay, yep, goes this way. So the die also will cut out 2 at a time. I'm going to get me a piece of washi tape to hold that die where I want it, because it's pretty, oops, it moves sometimes. Well, the washi tape's not cooperating. Just tear me off a piece. And kind of hold it in place. So when I use the washi tape, I sometimes will put it even off of the piece of cardstock, but for sure over the die and on the cardstock so that it'll hold that in place. And then you just crank it through meets a little resistance when it hits the dies. Makes some popping noises. All that's normal. Move this out of our way. The cool thing about our die cutting machines, remember they have the platform that shows you how to build your, and this one says it's to use with the embossing folder, but I was having a lot of difficulty with the one they had named number 1, and I saw a hint that if you would try the number 3 as your bottom plate and then 2 number 2s, that it would work better, and it was night and day. Like, I love this little machine. Up to that point, I wasn't using it because it was so frustrating. So sometimes there's just a little bit of variation in the rollers, and apparently I got one that's a little looser than it should have been, but using that number 3 has, I fall in love with it. Look, it cut them separately. How about that? That's pretty fun. And there's a generous piece of cardstock that you'll get. I can't do your stamping, so I could cut out your holly leaves, but they won't be stamped. And I don't think the cardstock, I'll have to look. If the cardstock offers some options to die cut some holly leaves, I will. Otherwise, hopefully you might have in your stamp collection some stamps that you could stamp and just cut out by hand. There's always that. I have ladies that even with these dies, okay, why is it not wanting to roll out some sticky for me? They still prefer to hand cut them, fussy cut them, whatever the terminology you would like to use for that. Turn it this way. Kind of opposite of where the stamped sentiment is. And I'll line it up along that left edge and kind of lay it over so it'll be straight across with the fold of the card. I did not put dimensionals at all on the front of this card. And then it's kind of up to you how you want to layer your holly leaves. I'm going to go ahead and put my adhesive on the back of both of them. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I think I'll put the big one on the top and the little one up there. And then did you notice the 3 holly berries? These red rhinestones, they also returned. They were in last year's catalog too. And they are in the annual catalog this time. Okay, I gotta find them. I stack all this stuff up over here to my left. Let me see. Oh, they're in the tub. No wonder I don't have them on my desk. So I'm going to use 3. If I can get them out of the package. And use my new Picket tool. So I'll get the description written as soon as the video finishes uploading. There's a little bit of a delay time. I know when it comes to an end, it always tells you that the video will be available shortly. Along with the list of supplies, I will look up which stamp set that I got the Merry Christmas out of. Isn't that pretty? It's just so pretty. I'm sorry. I think I must like what I do. So, which do you like better? The one with the red? The one with the green? The one with this? I showed some examples of this one last week. The differences are one of the ones, because I use that paper. And hopefully you have a strip. I don't believe there is. Inside, what sentiment did I use? All is merry and bright. And I stamped it in red because red is easily red. Huh? That's a different way to use a word that sounds the same. That's why English is so much fun. So, give it a little stamp. Oh, it's a little crooked. I didn't get my head far enough up. I didn't want to stick it in front of you. I can fix that later. And I'm going to see about the strips of paper because I think it needs them. So those are my 2 cards for my online card class today. You can get the card kits with your $25+ order using this host code. If you're not on my email list, please message me with your email address and I will add you, because I'm also going to send an email with the information about how to get the card class for free. So you'll get 4 cards. You'll get 2 of each of the ones I've made today. So in the way of news from Stampin' Up, other than the fact that these framed florets and the framed and festive, that whole suite of products, some of them are a limited time edition, but you do have till December 31st. But here's what happens. All of a sudden people start ordering, and these are only while supplies last, and the embellishments are only while supply lasts, and the paper. So that's why you don't want to wait too long. Other than that, I will be at Onstage, and I can't wait to share next week what we've learned. And I appreciate your time and watching. And if there aren't any other questions, I will see you later. Thanks. Bye.